I assumed every one of these pieces of backpacking gear was going to fail me on trail. Some look too cheap, some look too good to be true, and one is dismissed in the backpacking world as straight up dorky. Years later, they're all still in my pack. The first one is one I genuinely thought I'd be replacing every season. The Ultralight Frog Togs rain jacket. When I first bought one, the assumption was that this thing was basically disposable. The fabric feels like it could rip if you look at it wrong. The price was so low, it almost felt like a joke, and everything about it screamed, you're gonna need another one after about 1 or 2 trips. I was so convinced of this that I actually bought 3 of them at once just to have backups ready to rotate in once the first one inevitably failed. That was about 5 years ago. The original one is still in my pack, and the other 2 are sitting unused in a bin in my garage. But the twist is that it didn't survive because the jacket is durable. It survived because I changed how I treat it. Once I realized it actually worked, I just stopped scraping it against rough stuff. I don't bushwhack in it, I don't lean against granite in it, I'm just careful with it. That's the whole secret. Now, I do want to be upfront here because this isn't really a real rain jacket, and I don't want anyone going in with the wrong expectations. The fabric does tear pretty easily if you snag it on just about anything. There's no ventilation, so you're gonna sweat in it during any kind of effort, and in sustained heavy wind, water will eventually start soaking through the fabric. So if you're hiking somewhere like the Pacific Northwest or doing serious shoulder season trips, this is probably not the jacket for you. But for my 3 season trips where rain tends to come in shorter bursts, the Frog Togs has been just fine for 5 years running. The next item I underestimated was my first USB rechargeable headlamp, the Nightcore NU25 Classic. Before I picked one up, I was running a traditional Petzl headlamp powered by 3 AAA batteries. It worked fine, but I always felt compelled to bring 3 spare batteries with me on every trip just in case. So between the headlamp itself and the spares, the whole package just felt heavy and bulky in my pack, and I started looking around for something better. Then I stumbled onto the NU25, and I just couldn't believe what I was reading. A headlamp that weighed barely over an ounce with no removable batteries at all that was supposed to fully replace my 3 AAA monster, and the price was reasonable too? Everything about it just sounded too good to be true. I figured there had to be a catch. It was either going to be too dim, or the battery would die after the first trip, or the build quality was going to feel like a kid's toy. But on the very first trip with it, I was kind of shocked. It was bright. It had multiple brightness levels, a red light mode, a red strobe for emergencies, and the head tilted to angle the beam right where I needed it. And when the battery got low, I just plugged it into my power bank and it was charging. No fumbling with batteries in the dark, no worrying about whether my spares were dead, it just worked. Mine is the original version, which has since been updated, so I'll drop a link to the current model in the description. And by the way, if you're into this kind of breakdown, gear that I actually use, the assumptions I had to unlearn, all that stuff, I put out videos like this every week, so hit subscribe if you want more. The next item is one I almost never gave a second chance, and it's the Trekology Ultralight pillow. Years ago, I owned the original version of this pillow, and it developed a slow leak that meant I was reinflating it every couple of hours through the night. After a few trips of that, I kind of moved on and just figured I'd try something else. And for the next few years, randomly enough, my default pillow ended up being a $3 FlexAir pillow. It's basically supposed to be like a disposable hospital pillow, weighs about half an ounce, and somehow that thing has just worked. So I had no real reason to come back to the Trekology. I wasn't desperate, I wasn't searching for an upgrade, I was perfectly happy with my $3 pillow that felt like it was made out of paper. Then more recently, I was doing some research for a video where I wanted to test out the comfort levels of the current top backpacking pillows on the market. And in that research, I kept seeing that Trekology had released a second version of the Ultralight pillow with some updates to the design. So out of curiosity, I figured I'd give them another shot. And the new version is genuinely good. The build feels noticeably more solid. It's been holding air just fine so far, and it's actually become my pillow of choice on most trips now. So this one's kind of a rare second chance story for me. I'd kind of written off a brand based on one bad experience years ago, and giving them another shot turned out to be the right call. The next one is a piece of gear that looks like a glorified piece of trash, and that's the Polycro ground sheet I use under my tent. If you're not familiar with Polycro, it's basically the super thin, clear plastic sheeting that people use for window insulation. You can buy a roll of it at the hardware store for almost nothing, cut it to shape, and use it as a footprint under your tent. The way I ended up using it is when I bought my Big Agnes copper spur tent a few years back, I went to grab the matching footprint and realized it was sold separately, cost something like $80 to $90, and weighed 5 ounces. So I started looking for alternatives, and somewhere on a forum, I think I came across this Polycro idea. Honestly, my first reaction was that this little thin piece of plastic was going to tear immediately. It feels like the kind of thing that would fall apart on the first windy night. But mine is now 5 years old. Same sheet, still using it. Every once in a while, I'll pull it out a little too hard and like rip a corner off, but at this point, it's more of just a running joke than an actual problem. I'm still rocking it. The honest trade-off is that Polycro is so light that it gets blown around constantly when you're trying to set it up. You'll get in position, the wind will catch a corner, and now it's flapping off into the brush while you're still trying to get your tent body on top of it. There are nights where I genuinely wish I had a heavier, real footprint just to make the setup easier, but not enough to actually want to add 5 ounces and almost $100 back to my kit. The last one is one that gets actively dismissed in the backpacking world, and I bring them on every trip anyways. Convertible pants. You know the ones, the hiking pants with the zippers around the thighs that let you turn them into shorts? They've been around forever, and they have a real reputation of being kind of dorky. The dismissal is real, and it's been around for decades, and I get it. But none of that has anything to do with whether they actually work on trail. And for me, they're one of the most useful pieces of gear in my kit. My usage pattern for them is pretty simple. During the day, while I'm hiking, I almost always wear them as shorts. I'm working hard, I'm sweating, and shorts give me airflow and freedom of movement. So the legs come off and go in my pack. Then once I get to camp and stop moving, the temperature usually starts dropping, the wind picks up a little, and most importantly, the bugs come out. So I zip the legs back on, and now I've got warmth, a little bit of wind protection, and crucially, a full layer of bug protection. That last one is the thing nobody talks about when they're making fun of these pants. If you've ever sat at camp at sundown in just straight up shorts getting eaten alive by mosquitoes, you understand the value pretty quickly. That dorky critique kind of falls apart in that moment. And if there's a thread running through all 5 of these, it's that the backpacking world has a lot of opinions about what gear is supposed to look like, what brands are worth trusting, and what's considered legitimate out on trail. The gear that actually ends up earning a permanent spot in my pack often isn't what looks like the most legit on Instagram or what gets the most love on gear forums. It's just what works for me on my trips in the conditions I hike in. So if something keeps catching your eye, but you're hesitating because the niche says it's not cool, or it's too cheap, or it's too good to be true, sometimes the move is to just try it and let your own experience be the tiebreaker. And if you want to see the other side of this conversation, the gear I used to carry that didn't earn its spot, check out this next video right here. It walks through the stuff that I cut from my kit and what I replaced it with. So go out and give some weird gear a chance. Trust your own miles over the comments section, and I'll see you on the trail.